What does it do, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Says. I am your host, and welcome to episode 126. 126, my folks. And, well, the journey has begun. The quest is underway. The ship has left the dock. The SS Rambo has begun its voyage in search of a title. And so, with the kickoff of the NFL season in the Deuce 5, week 1, we have to take a look around the league at the interesting developments of note, of course. But first and foremost, we must begin with the LA Rams. Week 1 at the Palace in Inglewood against the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud and them. And I told you I was going to bring you this new season's episodes in a bit of a different format. And, the short answer is Coach McGenius followed my 25-30 principle when you look at it on paper. He got the dub, and as you know, dubs and L's and dubs. Which one did you get? McWonder got the dub. And so really, that could be the entire episode right there. 25-30 principle, check. McGenius gets the dub, check. On to week 2. Thanks for coming. Good night. But no, we have to take a more in-depth look at what happened Sunday. And we'll do that. But my overriding point is I'm not going to argue with the dub. It is far more important to me to get an ugly win than a beautiful, exciting loss. That's just the real. So, the thing is, they got the dub, and it was not beautiful. It was not aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Okay? And hey, it bees like that sometime. Okay? You can't always win pretty. You just, as old deceased Al Davis would say, just win, baby. And the Rams and McGenius did that. So my short list of concerns, well, as you know, I'd love to see them run the ball a little more. That's a recurring refrain in my coverage of the Rams, this regime. I'd like to see them more dedicated to the run. We'll dig inside the numbers. But I said to you last week, I gave you in last week's episode a whole host of predictions. And one of the predictions that I made was that the Rams defense was really going to be the difference maker in terms of how far the Rams go this season. Not Matty and K. Will and Tay and Puka. I mean, they're going to be, of course, critical factors, but the biggest, I think, the most critical element to the Rams reaching championship waters is going to be the consistent play of that defense. And so many times now, defensive games aren't beautiful to the eye. A lot of hitting, people limping off TV timeouts. But in the end, you just gotta get those dubs. And the Rams did that. And so at 1-0, I'm feeling good. I told you last week that I expected that the Rams would not have that slow start plague them like it has each of the past 3 seasons. No, I predicted that the Rams would get off to a nice start And I believe that that is still the case. In fact, I'm feeling good about pretty much all of my predictions that I made before the season started. I told you I thought Buffalo and Baltimore would be in the championship game in the AFC come next year, 2026. And when I told you that, I had not checked the schedule, and I really wasn't even cognizant of the fact that Buffalo and Baltimore would be playing in week 1 to open the NFL season on Sunday Night Football. But as you know, that in fact was the case, and I believe we got a glimpse of Championship Sunday next year when we saw Buffalo and Baltimore this past weekend. Now, I believe, as I predicted, that the outcome of that game will be different come January next year. But it was an astonishing game to watch. Just spectacular. Now, that was a compelling game, a magnificent game, beautiful to the eye, intrigue aplenty. That was one hell of a game. The Rams game wasn't like that, as you know. And so that game definitely caught my attention, caught my intrigue. And, wow, I had to. I felt for LaMarvelous after playing so well for so long, dominating Buffalo the way they did. And then, there was that, how it's funny how those missed extra points always seem to portend doom later, don't they? There was that, and then, King Henry, LaMarvelous was putting that imaginary crown on his head after Derrick Henry was rumbling through Buffalo. And then he went from king to court jester with that fumble, and it turned everything around, as you saw. But that was a hell of a game, and I'll tell you another game that was a hell of a game that caught my attention. Pittsburgh and the Jets. Pittsburgh and the Jets. Intrigue aplenty. You got Covito, who was banished from the Jets and eagerly picked up by Tomlin and the Steelers. You got him looking for revenge against his old team, and then, as fate would have it, the quarterback of Pittsburgh last year is sent away, and he goes to the Jets. And so the two starting quarterbacks banished from each team, now facing the other opening week in the Deuce 5 in the NFL. And that was a hell of a game, back and forth. And as the game wore on, I'm not a huge fan of Covito, just with all his off-field shenanigans and whatnot, but I admit I was surprised at how extremely well he played. And I was also pleasantly surprised at how well Justin Fields played. He looked great. And at the very end, if he, maybe if he just runs instead of throws that pass and gets his receiver lit up by ashes, or if the receiver can hold on to the ball as he's paid to do, why, they might just pull that one out. And one other game, let me tell you, one other game that I found quite intriguing, my folks, before we get back to regularly scheduled programming. It was Dallas and the Eagles. And I'll tell you what now, I had no expectation whatsoever that Dallas was going to be able to run with the Eagles, or should I say fly with them. But I was duly impressed at how much resolve and resilience them damn Cowboys showed. I couldn't believe it almost. It was astonishing. And, well, if it were not for C.D. Lamb CD for completely dropping. Dropping so many perfect Dak passes. I mean, were it not for that, they beat the Eagles, I think. Wow. And so it was an extremely exciting week around the NFL. And there were other interesting games of note, as you know, KC going down to the Chargers. And others, I mean, them damn Niners, Vaughn Shanahan. See, week one is notorious for anomalous football activity, AFA. and so you see things in week one that you don't necessarily see repeated. And then other times it's the beginning of a trend. Which is it? And you don't know in week one. Is this the way it's going to be for this team? Or was that anomalous football activity that you saw? AFA. Well, time will tell. But I think with them damn Niners, I think my prediction will bear fruit, that they will miss the playoffs. I don't see how they're going to survive. And already you got them dropping like flies, them damn Niners. You got, Ayuk is out, and now Kittle is out. 4 week's on IR, if not longer. And, Purdy, he can't elevate, second teamers like that, not for long. So, no, I don't see it. I think it'll probably be a long season for Seattle. I don't see it. The Cardinals, I don't believe, will be any real threat. And so I feel good about all my predictions as it stands so far. The one big prediction, the heart prediction, Rams in the Super Bowl, that's probably the one I feel the most concerned with. Why do I say that? Let's get back to regularly scheduled programming, shall we? I say that because for several years now, McGenius, noted offensive guru though he may be, has been the overseer of quite paltry offenses. His offenses the past few seasons, really since they won the Super Bowl, his offenses have been bottom third in the NFL. I know there were a couple of points at different times in those last 3 years when his offense was, at the bottom feeders. And so he's gone through a lot of characters. Remember, here's a great trivia question. Who caught the first COVID toe touchdown as a Steeler? Who was it? I'll give you a hint. It was Stoney. I was like, look at Stoney getting one. Stoney out there in Pittsburgh. But, McWonder has had characters like Stoney, and, he had Buster Brown, remember? Buster Robinson, and, we've had Soup, and just the recurring theme, though, is that no matter who, since that Super Bowl campaign, no matter who has been out on the field for McWonder, the offense has been on the lesser scale, on the lower end of the spectrum in the NFL. And my point is, it looks almost like more of the same right now in the Deuce 5. Now, again, AFA is a factor. Anomalous football activity. It could be that perhaps Houston is just that great of a defense. Huh? Perhaps. And perhaps the Rams just had to get untracked in week one and get it rolling. Perhaps. Or the other possibility is that the Rams offense will be bottom third or less again, as it has been over the past few seasons. And so time will tell. But if they are, let's say, a putrid offense, then it is imperative that that defense keeps the opponents in check in order for the Rams to even be competitive. And it's going to be even more crucial for Mr. McWonder to follow the formula, the recipe that I have sent him, the 25-30 principle. It's golden, McG. You've got to follow it when you don't have a prolific offense. And you haven't had one. And it's sort of odd because now you've got Tay and Puka and you've got K. Will, and I thought maybe now he's got the weapons, but for such a heralded offensive mind, his offenses have been pretty poor lately. But again, this is only week 1. And so we'll see how the Rams offense looks against the Titans in week 2. I expect the Rams will win, but I again expect more so it will be a defensive game. And the score probably will be on the lower end. And a dub is a dub. But can a team with a bottom third offense get to the Super Bowl? They can, but it's not a formula. It's not something that's going to occur often. Could be lightning in a bottle, sure, it could happen. You got the 86 Bears they always want to talk about. The Ravens, remember when the Ravens D carried the offense? Trent Dilfer and them, that putrid offense, carried them to a championship. You remember. But that's not the norm. That's the aberration. We'll see how it plays out. So, now, let's go ahead and just dig a little deeper into the actual numbers. And let's do an analysis. It's time for the Game Analysis 2025 edition Game Analysis. Well, I want to begin by giving you the Rams starting offense and defense. Let's start with you got Matty from the D, K. Will at tailback. Of course, you've got your tight end is Higbee, but McWonder gives you plenty of rotation at tight end. He's got Kobe the Ghost, and he's got Cousin Allen. So you see a little bit of all three of those not doing a whole hell of a lot of anything, not getting much from the tight end room at this point, only week 1. On the offensive line, well, Alaric Jackson was in the building, and then Steve Avila, who got hurt but then returned. Coleman Shelton is back at center. Kevin Dodson, the right guard, he got hurt and did not return. And then Havenstein at right tackle. And then, of course, at wide receiver, your wide receiver Brew, your wide receiver Stu. In 11 personnel is Tay, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and Tutu. And so I'm going to call them Puka Tutu-Tay. Puka Tutu-Tay. You say that 3 times fast, and it's like you're calling from another dimension for an ancestral spirit. Puka Tutu-Tay. A Puka Tutu-Tay. A Puka Tutu-Tay. That is who you have at wide receiver in 11 personnel. All right, and then you've got your backups in the wide receiver room, and I like them. Jordan Whittington and the X-Man, Xavier Smith, and And I'm going to say that your special teams play, primarily from Jordan Whittington, extraordinary against the Texans. Let's look at the defense. In your starting 11, on D, we have the conductor, Kobe Turner, Brayton Fisk, and Jared Verse from the 8. And, well, welcome your new addition, Landman, who made an impact, didn't he, at the end of the game? Spates and B. Young. Zero, you got Lake Q, and then you've got Cam Curl and Kinchins, and Forbes Jr. is a new addition, and Akello Witherspoon. And so I'm extremely impressed with that defense. And so, in honor of the victory, let's give out our game balls. Game balls. And as is customary, I have 3 game balls, and I want to give out 3 honorable mentions. Let's start with the game balls. Game ball, Matty from the D, Matthew Stafford. He's officially listed at 21 of 29 for 245 yards. No poltergeist strikes. And in the process, Matty became only the 10th player in NFL history to eclipse 60,000 passing yards. Tip of the cap. Congratulations, kudos, and game ball, sir. Game ball, Matt Stafford. I want to give a game ball, Puka Nacua. Puka got banged up. Oh boy, split his head open. Was it To'olo? That dude, To'olo. Oh, he was doing some hitting out there like a maniac. Pow, pow, pow. To'olo. Okay? And I think he might have been the one that opened up Puka's head. But Puka's a beast. Puka said, put some tape on that. Give me some Elmer's glue and some tape, and let me get that bandage over that. Let me get that helmet over that bandage, and I'll be good to go. And Puka was good to go. Puka, game ball, sir. 10 catches, 10, I say. 130 yards. The leading receiver in the game. Game ball, Puka Nacua. And then I want to give a game ball out on the defensive side. Let me give a game ball to the aforementioned Landman. The Landman. Game ball. He has 6 tackles, 4 assisted. And he had that peanut punch out, that game-saving punch out to create the fumble. Ball out. Landman, game ball. Welcome, sir, to the squad. Honorable mention, I want to give honorable mentions to Cam Curl. Cam Curl was your leading tackler on the day on defense. 8 tackles, 2 assisted. And I want to give an honorable mention to Byron Young. B. Young, 5 tackles, 4 assisted. I want to give an honorable mention to Jordan Whittington. Officially, he had 2 kick returns for 60 yards, but he had another one for 70 that was called back, and he had another one that was near 40 that was called back. So he was busting them out left and right. So we might have a weapon here with Jordan Whittington. Honorable mention, sir. And so, as I mentioned, when you apply my renowned 25-30 principle to this ball game, well, on the surface, you see that the Rams hit both metrics. In fact, let me just give you the numbers. Stafford, 21 and 29, 245 yards and a touchdown. What about rushing? Well, K-Will, 18 carries. That's a little short. That's a little light. McWonder, that's a little light. 18 carries, 66 yards, 3.7 yard per carry average, and a touchdown. Jordan Whittington had a carry. Deuces Corum had a tote. Nacua got a tote. The reason that the Rams are credited with 25 rushing attempts is because Matt Stafford is credited with 4 carries for -2 yards. You know what that is, don't you, my folks? That's the pocket breaking down. That is a passing attempt gone bad. 4 of them things. So, in reality, although officially, the Rams are credited with 29 pass attempts, which meets the criteria, and 25 run plays, which meets both criteria. In reality, 4 of those run plays were pass attempts gone bad. And factor on top of that, the Rams were sacked 3 times. So the actual passing attempts for the Rams is 36. 36. That's over the metric for the 25-30 principle for passing. Likewise, if you remove those 4 Matthew Stafford, we'll call them scrambles, you take those out, the Rams only had 21 rushing attempts. That's short. And so the actual rushing attempts, 21 for LA, and actual passing attempts, 36 for LA. And you see they miss on both metrics. Likewise, this same thing happened with Houston. Stroud, well, he's credited with 27 pass attempts. He did have a poltergeist strike, but he was sacked 3 times as well. That puts him at 30. And then Stroud is credited with 5 carries for 32 yards. Now, I don't believe all of those were designed runs. Maybe 2 or 3 were. But those were pass attempts gone bad where the quarterback had the athletic wherewithal to make positive yardage. Unlike Matty's 4 runs that got -2 yards, Stroud's 5 runs, positive 32 yards, but they were still pass attempts gone bad. And so, in the end, neither team met both metrics in fact, neither team met either metric for the 25-30 principle. And so, when you look at that, you find that the Rams were a bit closer to balance, but neither met both metrics. Now, this same theme sort of permeated around the league. Now, I decided to apply the metric to a couple of the games of interest around the league this past weekend. For example, I applied the 25-30 principle to the Dallas, them damn Cowboys, and the Eagles. And when I did so, what I found, well, see, the Eagles have a formula, as do the Packers. It's called the 25-30 principle, although they may not call it that. In fact, I don't know how they categorize what they're doing. I categorize it this way because I've tracked the pattern and I see that pattern results in wins, dubs when applied, both metrics. And so let's look at it now. Well, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, 19 of 23. Woo! 23 pass attempts, no touchdowns, no interceptions. That's clean. They call him a game manager, but I'll take that kind of managing. 19 of 23, high completion percentage, no mistakes. And then you're below the 30 cap threshold for pass attempts. Let's look at rushing. Well, Philly, 32 runs just from Hurts and Barkley alone. Now, Jalen Hurts outrushed Saquon Barkley in that game against Dallas, and they didn't even have Micah. But that just goes to show you the quality of Hurts. But for our purposes here, 32 runs just between Hurts had 14, Barkley had 18. See, and then they also added 6 more on top of that. So 23 pass attempts, 38 runs. Now, granted, they struggled to win, but the point is, they did win. And they apply the formula, and they do it with regularity. You know who else does it with regularity? You know who else uses this tasty recipe? This beautiful formula? The Eagles use it, and the Eagles are Super Bowl champions. You know who else uses it? The Green Bay Packers. Let's look at the pack. Jordan Love, 16 completions out of 22. 22 pass attempts. 22 pass attempts, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. Are you seeing a trend, my folks? The best teams, the winning teams, understand something. The 25-30 principle is golden. Apply it. Get the dub. Eschew it at your peril. Wear that L on your head. Okay? Jordan Love, 22 pass attempts. Now, rushing. Jordan Love had a couple. Wilson had a tote. Kraft, Brooks, 22, 25, 26, 25. Right on the nose. 25 runs, 22 passes. +3 balance differential. They won. They beat Detroit, who, you know, Detroit looked out of sorts, didn't they? Maybe with Ben Johnson gone, the knee biter is out of sorts, but Jared Goff threw 39 pass attempts, plus he got sacked about 3 times, I believe, plus he had a poltergeist strike. I mean, that's 44 pass attempts. Golfer, you can't, what are you doing? And then what about runs? Montgomery, 11. And Gibbs, 9, that's 20. And then the golfer, 1 for -1, that's not 1. And they only had 21 run plays and 44 pass attempts. You out of sorts. You're going to lose. You're going to wear that on your head. Their running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, had 10 catches. 10 catches! For 31 yards, 3 yards a pop, 10 catches for 31. How do you even do that? How do you catch 10 balls and get 30 yards out of the total? The 25-30 principle is golden, and as soon as McWonder embraces that and internalizes it and employs it, embrace, internalize, employ. As soon as he does that, he's going to be better. The Rams are going to fare better that way. All right. So, finally, let's wrap this one up. I just want to take a quick look at the standings just after week 1. Commanders and Eagles 1-0. Cowboys and Giants 3-4 at the bottom, just as I predicted. I'm talking about over the course of it. I think that's how it's going to look. Now, in the West, them damn Niners, I believe they will fall and they will fold. And the Cardinals as well. And the Hawks won't. The Seahawks are not going to be relevant. And so it's the Rams division to be had. But the thing is, you got to win the West, because I don't think there's going to be a wild card out of the West. And the NFC North, well, the Packers, they look ready. And Detroit, they look ready to take 2-3 steps back, moonwalking. Come on. And, well, let's look at the AFC very quickly. The AFC East, Buffalo at the top. That's how that's going to be. Look at the AFC North, Bengals and Steelers, just like, well, now, I told you, I thought that the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Ravens would all get a playoff spot out of the AFC North, and I still hold on to that. So, that's, you know, Ravens had a tough loss. They will bounce back and put a hurting on some folks. Trust and believe. And then you got the AFC West. Well, you know, the only winless team is Kansas City. Is the fall off underway? I mean, I think the ship will get righted to an extent, but the atrophy, the decay has begun to set in Kansas City. And, well, the final game of some interest to me was the Colts at Miami. And the interesting part about it to me was just how bad the Fins look. I don't see how McDaniels, I don't see how he survives past this season as a head coach down in Miami with the team looking like that. They look awful. And so there you have it, my folks. Just the first weekend. We've got quite a ways to go, but the ship is in the water now. And so far, the waters look calm. Sailing looks smooth. The coordinates are set, and now we have embarked. We are on our way on a quest or a championship. And so what I am going to ask now of you, what I'm going to ask for you to do is throw me one of these. Please like the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think and hit the bell so you'll be notified when I drop the next video, which won't be too long from this one because you know we will be back on the other side of the Tennessee game to chop that one up and see where the Rams stand. And I expect they will be standing at 2-0, or should I say sailing at 2-0. And so until then, my friends, Scotty says, thank you for watching. One love.